Prescott, Arizona is surrounded by a mountain range the cowboys call the Sierry Petes. The reason they call it the Sierry Petes is they couldn't pronounce the words Sierry Petes mountain range. And in that mountain range, the cowboys would rustle cattle and do all things that were up to no good. But they'd come down to Prescott, where they had an area called the Whiskey Row that consisted of over 40 bars in a row. And this is around the end of the Civil War, and it was pretty wild. And those 40 bars, they had a legend that if you had a whiskey at every single bar, by the end of it, you'd see the devil himself, which I believe is probably not far from the truth, as 40 shots of straight whiskey would probably have you seeing the devil. Anyway, this poem tells the story of a couple of those cowboys and Whiskey Row. Way up high in the Sierry Petes, where the yellowjack pine grow tall, Sandy Bob and Buster Jiggs had a roundup camp that fall. They'd taken their ponies and running irons and maybe a dog or two, and allowed their brand on every long-eared calf that came into their view. Now plenty of long-eared doggies that didn't brush up by day had their old ears whittled and their old hides sizzled in a most artistic way. Now Sandy Bob says one day as he threw his cigar down, "I'm tired of this here smell of burnt hide. Boys, I allows I'm going to town." Well, they saddled up and struck a lope, and how them boys could ride. And them was the days when old cowboys could oil up their old insides. They started up at the Kentucky Bar at the head of Whiskey Row, and they ended up at the Depot House, 40 drinks below. They set 'em up, turned 'em round, and went the other way, and I swear it's the God-forsaken truth. Them boys got stewed that day. Finally they was done, and they were heading for home, and they were packing a heavy load, when who shall they meet but the devil himself come prancing down the road. The devil said, "You ornery cowboy skunks, you better hunt your hole, 'cause I'm the devil from Hell's Rim Rock, here to gather in your soul." And Sandy Bob said, "Yeah, devil be damned. We may be a little bit tight, but if you're here to gather in any cowboy souls, you're in for one heck of a fight." With that he swung his loop, he swung it straight, and he even swung it true, and lapped it on the devil's horns, and took up his dallies too. Now Buster Jiggs, he's a riata man with his gut coils all rolled up neat. He shook him out, built a loop, and caught the devil by both his hind feet. They stretched him out and tailed him down, and while them irons were getting hot, they cropped and swallow-forked his ears. Then they branded him up a lot, and they left him there tied naked to an old blackjack oak. But before they left, they went and tied a few knots in his tail, just for a joke. So if you're ever up high in the Sierry Petes and you hear one heck of a wail, it's just the devil himself, hollering about them dang knots tied in his tail.